97.3 Citi FM. Relevant radio, always.
Proceedings are still going on. When the court says that they are adjourning to the 14th for you to come, so we may ask questions of you, because perhaps now they are looking at the addresses. Proceedings have not closed, and the court has now indicated that after the 14th, then the 15th days will be closed.
As you realize, the solicitors had the opportunity of addressing
Boss.
the petitioners essentially centered their case on the pink sheet. They claim that the pink sheet is a primary evidence in this matter, and that on the face of the pink sheet, they could establish biometric verification violations. We were able to establish the fact that presiding officers didn't sign. They were able to establish various forms of irregularities. As far as they are concerned, having regard to the totality of the material available or they presented, their case must be sustained. President J. Mahama should be set aside or unsuited. This was countered by the respondent's case. Basically, they disagreed with the issue of the pink sheet being the primary document. They said that the pink sheet cannot, under the circumstances, be the primary document. And that it was clear from Dr. Baumier's own cross-examination that in various cases you have to look at other material to justify some of the indication on the pink sheet. And in Dr. Baumier's own palace, the answer could be found in his analysis, which means that there's some document else you probably will have to do. The respondents, in unison, they indicate that one key factor that the court to look at is the fact that at all material times, agents of all the parties, including the petitioners, were present. That the count was made in public. 1, 2, 3. Everybody was there. 3. That there were no complaints from any of the agents. Out of the 26,002 polling stations, that there were no protests from any agent. It is in this regard that they claim that this election was very transparent and very clean. On the issue of overvoting, they said not a single witness was called in this case to come and establish that yes, somebody voted who was not entitled to vote, or somebody voted twice who was not entitled to vote more than 2 times. There was the issue of the serial numbers, where, like Mr. Chikata suggested, it was the weakest argument in a very weak case of the petition. It was actually quoting from the address of the second respondent, in that the whole question of serial number has been argued before this court. They urged the court to accept. It's simply that serial numbers are not security numbers relating to election. They are not election matters. They are not like the ballot paper, which carries a serial number and the violation of which is central to the whole process. And for that matter, he described the serial number complaint as the weakest in an already weak case of petition. But he indicated that the strange thing about the serial number is that the serial numbers are intended to void or affect almost 3 million out of the 4.6 or 5 million votes that the petitions are asking to have set aside. 3 million or so of them.
I was impressed with the summation of the petitioners, not so much with the respondents. It appeared that they didn't add anything new. There were no clarifications apart from one. And there was and Tachu gave something which most lawyers found really strange to our law, that the court cannot apply the law which is already in existence retroactively. How else can the court give effect to Article 64 of the Constitution if it is not after the fact that the law will be applied? So that was something that we all found a little intriguing. I also felt that the Petitioners' Council was treated a bit unfairly in view of the fact that respondents were allowed to submit their written addresses 1 day late. The Petitioners' Council requested for 1 minute to sum up their written addresses, and they were disallowed. I thought that was dealing rather unfairly with the petitioners. But all in all, it's been a wonderful exercise in demonstrating our law at work. I think the public televising and transmission of this case has made a lot more people interested in the law and seeing it in practice. But one thing that I would urge the judges to do is for each of them to write their judgments, for each of them to deliver a judgment, because of the enormity of this case and the huge historical importance of the case. I think it is incumbent on each judge to actually present and read their written judgment on justifying whatever decision that they arrive at, instead of concurring with what their colleagues may say. Some judges, I mean, it's allowed. If you agree with what your colleague judge is saying, you don't need to write your judgment. But I think it's important in this case for each judge to demonstrate the reasoning behind whatever decision they arrive at for the development of our law. And I will urge them to do that. And if they do that, it will give generations of law students and teachers of the law and adherents of the law more meat in terms of how we determine our future election petitions. I don't hope that we get any more, but this is such a landmark case that each judge should write their judgment. I think it will do us all the world of good.
As someone who has fought for women and women advocates, what message do you have out there for our women in relation to this election petition?
As all good citizens, we followed the law so far, and I think it's incumbent on us to also abide by the decision that the court comes out with, while we're urging the judges to be dispassionate and analyze the evidence and the law before them without fear and favor, so that justice will not only be done, but must be manifestly seen to be done. When that happens and each one writes their judgment and we can all understand the reasoning behind the decision they make, it will be very easy for people to accept that, our case was weak in this respect, or our case was strong in that respect, and the law has upheld the evidence that the judges have upheld the evidence and the law before them. So every woman in this country, if you're a parent, talk to your children that they should not lend themselves to be used to destabilize this country, even if the decision doesn't go the way they want. And I think that we must all work together hand in hand to ensure that our nation grows in leaps and bounds. One thing that I think this case is also doing for Ghana is cementing our role as the pace setter in the development of democracy on the continent. And whichever way this case goes, I think that we're demonstrating to the whole world that in the event of a dispute over an election, there is no need to take to the streets if we give the law a chance to work. or your position will be vindicated one way or the other, and you can have your issues addressed through the legal processes. And if we're able to do that, and in the event that the court sets aside the declaration of 10th December, I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but if the court does that, then that will be making real history on this continent, because it'll be the first time that an election petition has been won by the petitioner because of the preponderance of evidence before the court and an application of the law. So I'm looking forward to the 29th of August with bated breath, and we will all be here to lend our voice to the forward march to democracy.